Is Victor Wembanyama ready to be the face of the NBA?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Locked On Spurs, we're to the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. And yeah, glad to have you back as always. You guys are the everydayers. We appreciate y'all coming here every single day. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs on YouTube, the Ken's 5 Plus app, iTunes, Spotify, Locked On Spurs newsletter. Just go to LockedOnDaily.com, or if you're watching on YouTube, just click the link below, see the description. You can't miss it. It says Locked On Spurs newsletter. It is completely free. Sign up today. Today's episode is brought by FanDuel. You want to go to FanDuel right now because new customers get themselves $250 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. So go do that right now. What are we talking about today? We're talking about Victor Wembanyama. Is he ready? Is he going to be the next face of the NBA? So many factors that go into that. We're going to be breaking them down, looking at maybe other sides of the coin here that maybe we didn't see if Victor is ready to be that face of the NBA. And then we'll see what's going on with the NBA playoffs. Sure, the Spurs are not playing right now. Maybe they will next season. Who knows? But there were some thrilling games. We're going to get to that. Some of the things that stood out for the first few days of the NBA playoffs. Going to bring in our guest, Matt Guzman, live from Missouri. What's going on, buddy?
Well, I had about the worst bout of technology issues you could imagine this morning, but glad to be here. I appreciate you having me.
So I should have recorded all that and just have it like in a blooper reel. We go like this is happening to Matt. You look at him, just see, and then play to like a circus theme. You go in a back and forth trying to.
Honestly, that's kind of how it felt.
Yeah, it did. He is with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Make sure to follow him on X at MattGZMAN. Do that right now. He'll talk about what he's got cooking for you guys in the off season. It's going to be a long Spurs off season, so you might as well get a lot of your Spurs information from a lot of places. Matt is one of them you want to go to right now. Matt, this is a topic here I wanted to discuss with you because it has been popping up out there in the national media, whether it be on Fox Sports or ESPN. They've been talking about the next face of the NBA. Now, why are they bringing it up? Well, because you don't know how much longer you got LeBron James going on. Will Steph Curry call it a day, et cetera, et cetera. And you start looking at the new wave of players from Wemby to John Morant, Luka Doncic, et cetera, et cetera. But Wemby's name right now is kind of getting forgotten a little bit in the next phase of the NBA. But when they do dive deep into it, that name comes up. I saw a show on Fox Sports where they're talking about this topic, and Wemby's name was not mentioned until the end, where one guy goes, "Oh yeah, there's Wemby." It's like, how do you forget him? So kind of the things that you want to look at for the face of the NBA is titles. Victor doesn't have that yet. Does it even matter, Matt? Should that even count if he's going to be the face of the NBA sooner than later?
I think eventually he's going to need to get a title to be in that conversation. I think there's no question that he's going to be a big pool for any NBA fans that want to check out the league. I mean, just the amount of hype that he entered the NBA with, and he's only delivered on that. Obviously, the Spurs haven't been as competitive as they would have liked with him in now 2 seasons, but he is not disappointed as far as his skill set and the things that made him so interesting and so fun to watch. And I think that he's going to have no problem attracting fans to come watch the NBA, to come watch the Spurs. But if he really wants to put himself in that I am the face of the NBA, or if he wants to be one of those players where when you think of the NBA and you think of basketball, you think of him, I think he is going to at least have to make the playoffs and be competitive, which, I think will be easier now that he's got a couple years under his belt and hopefully the health persists. But yeah, I think eventually it will come down to how competitive can he be, whether it's a title or just simply competing, at the top of the West.
There are signs that he's getting there. He's top 10 jersey sellers in the NBA. Top 10 most viewed player in the NBA. The Wemby effect, the Spurs in general, their merchandise is top 10 sellers in the league. So we can see the impact that he has, not just on the franchise, but just on the NBA. Fans want to put his jersey on. There's the global aspect to this as well, Matt. French-born guy there. The Spurs played in the Paris games last season. Huge numbers, big to do in the NBA. But again, I go back to he needs to win first. He can have all the jersey sales he wants and play in Paris from now until he retires. It won't matter until he starts getting W's, playoff appearances, and more. Here's another aspect of this too, the international side of it. You think an international player is ready to be the face of the NBA? You go back in history, it's been your Larry Birds, your Michael Jordans, your LeBron James, to a certain degree, Steph Curry. What about an international player? I don't think we've had that. Giannis got close, but you still don't think of him as the face of the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a debate that, Stephen A. Smith might have some strong opinions on. I remember him talking about that, but no, I don't see any issue with an international player being the face of the league. I think for 5-6 years now, in fact, I think the NBA posted something maybe a week ago, whenever they announced the stat leaders at the end of the regular season. It was the first year that all 5 categories, points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, were led by a different nationality. Because he had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who was Canadian. Jokic was Serbian, obviously. If Giannis was up there, he's Greek. Even Dyson Daniels led steals, and he was Australian. I think the league is definitely trending in that direction of being more far spread. It's no longer just an American league, and I think that's what makes the FIBA World Cup and makes the Olympics so much more interesting now. I don't think there's any problem with an international player leading that league, and I think Victor Wembanyama is no exception.
Yeah, and I think if there is going to be an international player that will break through that right now, it's got to be Luka, right? Let's just say the Lakers, they march to an NBA title, and they get it, or maybe even get to the Western Conference Finals, and Luka just has a strong showing. You add in that he's playing in Los Angeles, bright lights, big city. He already has a big name, even when he was playing in Dallas. Huge international following as well. Do you think he could be the first major international star to be the face of the NBA?
I think so. I think there's a chance, and it's funny that we're talking about it because he's been in the league for, it feels like, a long time, but he's only 25, only 26.
Yeah.
He's got quite a ways to go. And I think, especially being traded at the deadline the way that he was, I think, his name was all of a sudden a lot more attractive. People wanted to know who this guy was if they didn't already, and now you have an entire other side of the fan base of the NBA now watching him, Will almost rooting for him against the Mavs, and so it's a very interesting thing, and what he brings to any team on the court certainly makes him, an exciting player to watch, just the same as Jokic, the way that they kind of thread the ball in places you wouldn't even think possible. And so I think he's definitely a prime candidate for something like that if he isn't already up there.
Yeah. I think Luka might be the first international player to be that if he can break through. He got close to Dallas, a couple of years ago against Boston in the finals, but it didn't happen. But you factor Luka, you factor Wemby, Giannis, you mentioned Dyson Daniels, and all those other international player accolades. You figure one's got to hit. Somebody, whether it's Wemby or not, but some player is going to hit that eventually where it's an international player. And, that international player for years had a bad rap. Oh, they're soft. Oh, they're not adaptable for the NBA. Well, actually, it's now flipped. You look at Joker, and Joker is just a beast on the court. Are you surprised that he has not been the face of the NBA?
Honestly, not really. Because, I love watching him personally.
Effect, right? It's kind of like
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no doubt that he's an amazing player and the things he do, he had 30-20-20 and a 60-10-10 this season. It's just ridiculous. I think it's the way he carries himself. He's not particularly interested in that kind of limelight and that kind of spotlight, and that's fine. But I think fans kind of recognize that and they kind of gravitate towards the more flashy players. Same thing like you mentioned with Tim Duncan. That's absolutely kind of what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at what Tim Duncan did during his playing days, it's just phenomenal. If the NBA needed a face of the league, a poster child, it was him. Good on the court, good off the court. Not making headlines for the wrong reasons, making headlines for the right reasons. No coaching issues, nothing. Just winning titles and winning games and winning playoff series. But the NBA never did that. You look even further in the NBA history, look at David Robinson. He got close. He was right up there. I would say before Wemby, the most marketable player was David Robinson, because he had his Nike shoes. He had Mr. Robin's Neighborhood. He was on Sesame Street. He would go on the circuit of talk shows, late night talk shows. He was in movies. Then kind of got Kawhi. Tim Duncan didn't want that. Kawhi was Kawhi. Wemby is obviously the next one to be that marketable player for the Spurs, but he could be also marketable for the NBA. He has been, and he is doing that. And you mentioned earlier the jersey sales, so he's definitely raking in the revenue for the league. But are there other aspects to Wemby becoming the face of the NBA? I'm gonna ask a big one, the big question to Matt, and just like he is with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. We should have followed on X at Matt G ZMN. You want to do that ASAP. But first, I want to talk to you about FanDuel.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love that FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props from three-pointers, steals, assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. You got to try out the FanDuel app right now. Download it, get it on your favorite device. Easy to use, user-friendly. You can pick it up in no time and just have fun watching the NBA playoffs. Don't miss out. Head out to FanDuel.com to claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Hey, this is Hot Rod.
And I'm RC from the Cybertron Spurs.
And you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Matt Guzman. He's with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Follow him on X at MattGZ, and give him maybe some tech tips, how to avoid tech issues. That was the first time I ever saw you really struggle, Matt. I really saw you struggling. Yeah,
that was bad. I'm honestly, like, in the back of my mind, as soon as we get off, I'm gonna figure out where in the world my chargers have gone.
Yeah. Isn't it so crazy how dependent we are on these things now?
It's true. Yeah.
Right? Matt, you're obviously I'm older than you, but back in the day, we had to commit to memory friends' phone numbers, commit to memory, and we did it. We did it. Now you ask me to do that right now. Go memorize 3 phone numbers. I'll be, I don't know.
You're telling me you don't have the Spurs communication team's numbers memorized?
We would edit that out right now. Locked On Spurs. No, I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, it's just so crazy how dependent we are on technology nowadays. But anyway, we're talking about the face of the NBA. Can Victor be that guy? One aspect to this has been brought up again on the sports talk shows is the player itself, or himself, I should say, and not necessarily what they can do on the court, with the numbers and the highlight reel and top 10 plays and jerseys, whatever. It's, can the person be a dividing figure? Not a bad, well, I guess it could be in a bad way, but in the sense of this, you look at LeBron James, face of the NBA, all right? A lot of pro LeBron fans, a lot of anti-LeBron fans. Look at it, Michael Jordan. There were a lot of pro Michael Jordan, a lot of anti-Michael Jordan. There has to be an element of a fan base that do not like that player, because it adds more spice to it. Larry Bird was the same way. You look at Steph Curry. All he does is shoots threes, whatnot. He's thanks to him, the NBA's busted because everybody just wants to shoot threes. But then, no, look, he brings that element. He revolutionized the game. I don't think as of now, Wemby is a dividing figure, because I think that's a little bit of an aspect to being the face of the NBA. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're right. The closest that I think you and I have seen to Victor getting hate or Victor not being loved by anyone who's watching him probably has to be Thunder fans who at a period of time thought that Chet deserved Rookie of the Year, so they didn't want anything to do with Victor. But I think even they've kind of like, they've realized that the two very different situations there. But I think you're right. Anytime that we've seen a superstar kind of take the league by storm or be promoted by the NBA super heavily, even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has, a fan base against him. Mm-hmm. I think that is definitely something that I think at some point in time, you wonder if Victor's going to get that kind of a fan base. I don't know why he would, other than the fact that maybe fans are tired of him beating their team. Or tired of him, getting a 5x5 against their favorite player. I don't know, but I think that definitely will play a role, because it kind of shows how notably you are, I think, in a way. It just kind of shows the kind of allure that you bring in. With that comes, the other side of it, where people don't like to see be successful.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. Obviously, Victor has just finished his sophomore season, so he has a lot more years to go, but we'll see if that does happen. But where I can project where he could get a fan base that, kind of push back on him and still like him because of his skill set, just dominating, I can see kind of a Shaq effect, because back when Shaq was playing, you couldn't touch him. And he can shoulder you in your chest and they wouldn't call off as a foul. He was just an overwhelming force. And fans, began like, oh, you can't touch him. He, refs give him favorable calls and whatnot. You might start seeing that. You're maybe starting to see a little bit of that, as well as he's an NBA big that shoots a lot of threes. You see a lot of some fan base, not just Spurs fan base, but just the NBA fan base, say, how are you 7'5", and all you want to do is take a lot of threes. I could see that could be a dividing point for him moving forward. But I don't think Victor wants that type of negative shine on him, that, oh, I have a fan base that doesn't like me. I think that's not him. It's not in his DNA. He definitely likes the spotlight. There's no doubt about that. Louis Vuitton, ambassador, commercials, the list goes on and on. So he definitely accepts the spotlight, but there will be a point in his career where I think he'll start getting a negative spotlight. And I really believe it'll be just because he's just an overwhelming force. He's going to get bigger physically. He's going to get smarter. He's going to figure out defenses quicker. He's just going to be a powerhouse. And fans will be like, well, how can we slow them down? But for sure, you're right. Thunder fans definitely don't like him. And I would throw in Rockets fans. Fans.
Because they're salty they didn't get him. That's right.
So salty. Yeah, so salty. Also, I don't remember this. When Wemby made his debut in Madison Square Garden, Knicks fans were chanting overrated. I think that was because he came out and said that Madison Square Garden wasn't as big as he expected it to be, right? I think that had something to do with it. See, there you go, Victor. You want to divide the fan base and start talking smack about other homes in the NBA. He called out. He said, "Is this like just a bad game?" But as right now, he has divided their fan base, and I think that's a part of being the face of the league, is being that type of polarizing figure. Matt, I look at Wemby and he says he's ready to embrace the face of the league title, that he wants it, he is open to it. But heading into season 3, do you think he's ready for that?
I think so. I mean, I think he's ready, as far as the attention and the distractions, I guess, that come with that kind of. I mean, it's never going to be an official title, right? But if you're one of the league's top players, you're always going to be talked about. You got to learn to, avoid TV. You got to learn to avoid social media, to, just kind of stick true to your own game and not let anything kind of creep in. I think in that aspect, he's ready. The thing that I'm questioning is whether or not he will be, just because, there's going to be a lot of pressure coming back from this injury that, I think a lot of speculation has been made that had he not been injured this season, the Spurs would have made a better run or would have made the postseason. And so I think, in that regard, there's definitely going to be a lot more pressure on him. And I think he's ready to handle that pressure. It's just a question of, what that kind of does for his reputation, especially if he comes back right away and gets going, or maybe he's going to struggle again, like we've seen the past 2 seasons. Right. I think a lot of it is still up in the air.
I think it'll be delayed next year if the Spurs don't make a postseason appearance. I'm going to play into. If they miss it again, no. I think it's delayed. I think that's a big factor. At least get your team into the play-in at minimum to start being in the conversation. So if the Spurs miss out again, I think it's just delayed again. Also, too, you got to think about this too, Matt. Look at the upcoming draft. This guy named Cooper Flagg. I mean, he looks like he could be primed to take that center stage and spotlight away, not just from Wemby, but from a lot of players, because of just how good he is. And it also is going to depend on where he lands. If he lands in it, with the Wizards or the Hornets, the Jazz, that's going to be a factor too. But, he's the type of player that can take the league by storm. So there's that as well. And there's also, he's an American guy. So, if NBA loves American faces of the league, that we've not had an international player be that. But Wemby is certainly damn close. But he's got to start winning. The Spurs got to start winning. And I get it. It's this game. It's not an individual player thing. But Wemby is primed to be that. And look, Spurs fans would love for that to happen. Love for Wemby to be the center of attention in the NBA, and obviously that trickles down to the Spurs being a part of that as well. So hopefully the Spurs can get winning. But Matt, for sure they definitely got the pieces ready for that. You got Castle, you got Fox, you got multiple draft picks in a few weeks at the NBA draft. So Matt, they're primed to make that push for Wemby, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason that optimism exists around, if Victor had been healthy this season, what could they have done? And I think Fox preached it multiple times, just having an offseason to grow with him is going to be huge for the two, for the chemistry between the pair, but also the team in general. And I think, Castle's only going to improve this offseason, and you throw those three back on the floor together, and they can make some noise right away. I think they definitely have the pieces and they have the makeup to be able to be a competitive team in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I got them coming out of the gate strong next season. I mean, just coming out,
that would be a welcome change of pace.
Yes, I really think that's how it's going to start the new season. But of course, that's months and months from now, so hopefully they'll be ready for that. He is Matt Guzman. Make sure to follow him on X and Matt GZMAN. He's with Spurs on Sports Illustrated, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Is Victor ready to be the face of the NBA? Can an international player do that? Again, we told you how to get a hold of Matt. If you're watching on YouTube, you see it on your screen. Then let me know your thoughts by going to Locked On Spurs YouTube page and leaving a comment there. We'll read it in a future episode. But coming up next, we're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs. Let's start with standing out for us as the NBA. See, I wish the Spurs were in this. I was going to say Spurs postseason, but the NBA postseason has begun. We're going to do that in minutes.
This is Emilio Rivera, El Padrino for the Mayans MC. You are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Matt Guzman, who had a technical issue during the break. He did. Happened again. Happened again, Matt.
It did.
Good thing we caught it during the break, though. That's awesome. At least it didn't happen live, although some fans would love to see that happen in real time.
Oh man, yeah. I hope this would never happen if we did an in-person show.
But Matt, you're at a university. I mean, couldn't you use their AV department and stuff? I mean, that'd be kind of awesome.
I could, I might, what? And it's funny, they call it Tiger Tech. Maybe I'll show up at Tiger Tech and see if I can find a charger.
Tiger Tech.
That's what it's called.
It sounds like an anime I would watch. Tiger Tech. That's a Tiger Tech. Oh, but anyway, we are talking about the Spurs, and now we're going to start talking about the NBA playoffs. Spurs are not in it, but it's still an exciting time for the NBA as the postseason has begun. From the Thunder being the Thunder, I think the Memphis Care Bears showed up against Game 1 to the Clippers letting it go versus Denver. Right off the bat, for me, I'll start off with OKC. Is if it's just one game and that's the kind of OKC we're going to get, then good luck the rest of the West field, because that OKC Thunder team is power stacked. Now, consider the opposition. It's Memphis coming off a play-in game. Quick turnaround for them. Maybe that was just shell shock and they weren't ready for it. But the Thunder, Matt, they look strong for a deep postseason run.
Absolutely. And I think the scariest part about the Thunder is that, this team is kind of flying under the radar. Even as good as it was this year, 68-14, it was still not talked about as one of the best. Like, I think people were just focusing on the Warriors and maybe the Rockets and the Lakers. Yeah. And that Thunder team has been sitting there for about a week now, just waiting to figure out who they're going to play. And they did not care who it was. Right out the bat. There was a few stats that made me laugh. I think there was only one Memphis starter had more made baskets than turnovers. I think when they emptied the bench, the Thunder's lead was more than Memphis's total points. Wow. And that half-court shot that was all over everyone, Marvin Bagley, that counted as, I think that was at the end of the third quarter, and that counted as the Grizzlies' first fast break points of the game. Like, it was just a complete domination.
Yes, it really was. Now, that was just one game. Maybe Memphis will show a little fight in game 2. But if that's the Thunder team that's out there, good luck rest of the NBA playoff field. One other thing that stood out for me, too, was just about the Rockets. This is the number 2 seeded team in the West, going against a team that got into the playoffs via play-in, the Golden State Warriors. Now, the Golden State Warriors are definitely veteran heavy, from Jimmy Butler, Curry, Green, the list goes on and on. You got Steve Kerr on the sidelines there as well. But I don't know, Matt. That first game made me think like maybe Houston was a bit overrated. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I mean, I've kind of been looking at this series almost like the seeds are flipped. I think that, the only reason that the Warriors had to go through the play-in is just because of how stacked the Western Conference was.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, if the Spurs hadn't, Harrison Barnes specifically hadn't beat the Warriors, they might be in the 4th seed playing the Clippers right now, or they might be playing the Nuggets. And so I think, that the fact that they were 7 doesn't really speak to what that team is and what it's capable of, especially with Jimmy Butler. So I kind of entered the series flipping the seeds in my mind, and game 1 kind of, on the road, no problem. Curry had 31, Jimmy Butler had 28. I think that's a team that's very dangerous, and I think it's less about Houston being overrated and more about that experience is already starting to show. They talk about that a lot, how much experience matters in the play-in or the playoffs. I think that was evident from game 1.
Yeah, Jalen Green was practically a no-show for Houston. I mean, he's their guy and didn't step up at all. That Warriors team, that's a team you don't want to sleep on if they advance past Houston moving forward. That's a dangerous team, and playoff GB is a real thing because that guy's stepped up in game versus the Rockets. So Matt, what else is standing out for you in the playoffs so far?
I think, beyond obviously the big blowout that we saw yesterday, what I was interested in was the Lakers-Timberwolves series. I think, everyone was kind of curious what Luka was going to be able to do for that squad, and it did not look great off the get-go. I think the biggest problem the Lakers are going to face this postseason is going to be defense. They've shown that trio of Doncic, Austin Reeves, and LeBron can combine for 85 points, 90 points, even if they're really, really effective. And I think they're going to need to do that, against a team like the Timberwolves with such strong defense and players like Anthony Edwards on the offensive end. So I think, it was a little telling, and I'm almost curious, maybe this series isn't going to be as close as I thought it might have been. But I'm curious just to continue to watch and see how it plays out.
Yeah, for me as well, I like to talk about that first game 1, Denver Clippers. That was a game that the Clippers had no business losing. They did it to themselves.
Right.
20 turnovers in the game. You allowed the defending champs some life. You gave them life in the series. The Clippers had them pretty much on the ropes and didn't deliver the knockout punch. Harden, I got to give it to him. He stepped up in that game, but where's you need more offense. You need, where's Norman Powell? He didn't show up. Usually, Ty Lue reviewed a play, and the out of bounds play that even Kawhi Leonard was like, "Nah, don't worry about it. Don't it was out on pretty much saying, it was out on me." And then they reviewed it and that blew out timeout for them. So there was a lot of coaching errors or obviously a lot of player errors. But I think even if you minimize, you just do half of those turnovers, I think the Clippers win. So I think that Clippers-Denver series, I think is going to be either a 6-game series or a 7-game series based on that game 1. We'll see how they do just last night in game 2. But yeah, that was an exciting one. Looking at the East, though, any other East matches that caught your eye?
Yeah, obviously I was intrigued by the Cavaliers who, had a decent run last season, but weren't exactly, they weren't able to go as far as people thought they might have. And I think that was another example of just that experience. But Cleveland came out of the gates and looked pretty strong. They took that game 1 and it was pretty good to see, to be honest. I'm all for Cleveland making a big run, especially because Celtics seem to be running that conference for the last couple of years.
I know. Boston still look like Boston. I think Orlando's not ready for the bright lights yet. And then for me, just because my adopted home is New York City, I was pulling for the Knicks, and I was sweating that game. That's for sure. I was like,
oh, that was a close one.
I was like, it's not going to be good. Detroit was one of those scary teams. They got nothing to lose. Right. They're young, just go out and because New York has a lot to prove. And Jalen Brunson, is being Brunson. Cat is being Cat. So good on them. So hopefully we'll see my adopted home in New York City, and the Knicks move on. But Matt, before we let you go, tell us what's going on at Spurs on Sports Illustrated. What are you doing this offseason? How you keep your fans still going with silver and black stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at some point in the near future, I'm hoping to start up the thing I've been doing for the past 3 off seasons, just kind of doing an article per player, just kind of looking at their season, how they did. Hoping to sprinkle in a couple features as well with Chris Paul, especially just to kind of talk about the impact he had this year, even in one season. We don't know what's going to happen with him beyond right now, I suppose. But I think that's kind of what I'm going to be focusing on, is just reviewing the season, getting ready for the draft lottery, for the draft, all those things, because then we're going to have plenty to talk about once that time hits.
Oh yeah. It's gonna spike up again. We're going through a little low period right now, but as Matt mentioned, you have the draft lottery, obviously draft night. You're gonna have the summer league. You're gonna have rumors. You're gonna have player workouts. So there'll be a lot to talk about. Some international play from Spurs. Well, maybe we'll see. He'll be a Spur. Mamu is gonna be playing for Team Georgia. Sohan's gonna be playing for Team Poland. So there'll be stuff to talk about when it comes to your silver and black. And Matt, I hope Victor not playing with Team France. Can you imagine?
I agree. I think he needs to take a break for a little bit.
Yeah. No, Wemby, don't play for Team France. It's not the Olympics. I think they're good. France is a strong team. They can handle this qualifier by themselves without you. But expect all that and more right here, Locked On Spurs, and obviously at Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Matt, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy school schedule to come out here and join us here on Locked On Spurs. No more tech issues. We need Tiger Tech next time you're on.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a visit over there today and make sure this doesn't happen again.
So. That's gonna be looking like he's at a news station, and next year he's gonna be on. He's gonna be surrounded by big screens, TVs everywhere, boom mics everywhere. It'll be awesome. But again, everybody, make sure to follow him on X at MattGZMAN. And we thank y'all for being the everydayers, coming here to Locked On Spurs every single day, discussing all things silver and black. As we mentioned, the offseason is here, but doesn't mean the Spurs topics continue. Stop. No, there's a lot to talk about. Make sure to follow Locked On Spurs on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, KenSpy, Plus app. Check out the Locked On Spurs newsletter, LockedOnDaily.com is where you want to go. Or if you're on YouTube, just go in the description below. There's a link there that says LO Spurs newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow talking all things silver and black. So for Matt Guzman, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock in this episode of Locked On Spurs.